Warning. What you are about to hear goes against traditional romantic counsel expressed by friends, family, and Instagram memes and quotes. Open-mindedness is advised.
Good night, everybody. Good night, everybody. Good night, everybody. And welcome to another edition of The Senate. I'm your host, Neil Hoyt, along with the other host, Derek Marshall, my brother from another mother. We are here, another week, another set of episodes. But before we get into everything, we normally do our due diligence. Derek, first things first, most importantly, how are you doing, my brother?
I am good. I am well. What's going on with you, man? Talk to me. How you keeping?
I am good. I'll be honest, I'm a bit hungry, but other than that, life is all right. Life is good. I'm just, trying to keep rolling with the purpose. And as you say, have an abundance mindset and living my purpose. So, we on the grind. We got some things happening behind the scenes with the podcast and other things I got going on. So other than that, we good. Before we get into what we got, we've played some music. You've seen some music videos there. So with G Syndicate, my man Derek, he has the best a cappella group in the Western Hemisphere. We have not been out, but I've been to the East, and I cannot tell you that I've heard any a cappella group, so I would say in the world. So, Derek, plug your stuff. Let everybody know who you are, where you can be found, and what to expect.
Yes, that is everything, guys, as usual. G Syndicate 6, gsyndicate6.com. You can start there, then you got G Syndicate 6 on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Everything you want to know, shout out to you guys. We had an awesome rehearsal last night. That's Kiamal, Waden, Brett, Mark, and Antonio. Awesome rehearsal, just preparing, getting ready so that we don't, staying ready so we don't have to get ready for anything that happens in the coming months. And it was good to get out. We got the guys. But I'm really excited to kind of get into tonight's topic.
All right, well,
it's been great. It was really interesting to see the response we got for this morning's topic. But before we go into that, let me not get ahead of myself. So we do things the right way. As usual, guys, come in, bring your friends, invite them to watch the show, tune in, like the page, follow the Senate podcast on YouTube, the Senate podcast right here on Facebook. Follow us on IG at the Senate Podcast 246. If you want to send us email submissions as well, the Senate in session at gmail.com. So just I give you a couple seconds to do all that stuff. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and on Gmail if you want to send anything in. Just 2 seconds for that. Right, so now we're back. And we had an interesting topic. I kind of prefaced it last week.
Hold on there. Before we get into the topic, we did say we were going to have a special guest.
We did.
She is here. Just don't feel that we didn't put clickbait, but she is here. Everybody, welcome our special guest, Dionne Knight. Dionne,
come in.
I'm here. Good night, everybody.
Good night, Dionne. Good night. Welcome to the Senate. You are our first female guest.
Yeah.
You are obviously your day one, as the young people to say. You've been following us and commenting everything since we started this journey. So we thank you for that. We appreciate you joining us. So what we do, how are you doing? What's up? How is life treating you, especially with COVID and ashfall and everything?
Life is good for me, to be honest. Work, gym, home, and that's how I like it. So life is
simple
good
life.
for me.
It's simple life.
Definitely.
Nothing wrong with that.
All right. So
let me get a little bit more from Dionne. So Dionne, tell us a little bit about yourself. We went to school together, so and we know each other a long time. I won't say how long.
It's funny, right? Derek? We always say that I know you, Derek Marshall, for 30 years. That means I know Dionne for 29 years.
Yeah. Which means that Dionne too is up there.
Why are y'all trying to put my age on social media?
No.
we're gonna let you talk about yourself just a little bit. You know, if you care to give your age, you can do that. But what do you do? You know, really work, that kind of thing. Where your interests, that kind of thing.
So, what do I do? Anytime I say this word, people can be asking me what it is because I've heard all kind of variations on puppet. So,
Right,
I am an actuarial manager. So, the
right.
short version is I calculate risk in insurance, risk in investment. It sounds very nerdy. It's a little bit nerdy, but
Yeah. Did
it
you
pays.
calculate your risk coming to this show?
I did.
Okay, okay. And you're
I
here,
did.
What was
so
the result? What was
I
the
apparently it
did.
was
result?
low.
I weighed my risk and my reward heavily before I told y'all yes.
Okay, good,
But
good.
you know, it's so funny, right? Because before we came on the show, obviously you guys would have seen the promotional graphic that I would have done for this. Obviously, we got several pictures of Dionne. We used that one, and then I titled it, and then obviously we sent it out. And it's funny because of how I titled it and how we have Dionne there looking all nice and pretty and everything like that. But we got my problems. We don't want to get you in trouble, Dionne. We kind of clear up that already.
My
But
lawsuit is coming.
oh dear. Well. Any lawyers, any of our fans that are lawyers, you can please contact us as soon as possible before
Yeah,
Dionne puts
right.
her lawsuit
Her
into
legal team.
motion.
Yes,
Yeah.
But yes,
this one does not have my problems. We put that out there. Right?
so tell
That
tell
is
the
not.
people, tell the
That
people,
is
right?
not what it is about. Dionne does not have my problems.
You got
Good.
99 problems, but mine ain't
A
one.
man one, a
Correct.
man one,
Correct.
a man
All
one.
right,
Good.
all right,
Happy to
good
hear
enough.
that.
Good.
So Dion, yes.
No,
Let me get to the meat of the matter, right? I found this topic intriguing, right? And I'll tell you why. Because um, when we first started, this little journey, um, I would post stuff, and some of the reactions would be volatile, to say the least. Um,
mhm,
and then I was cautioned by both of you, actually. Both of you are here
mhm,
privately, of course, to be a little less incendiary in terms of the way I would word stuff and some of the graphics I might use to initiate the discussion.
mhm.
Right? Cool. I decided, you know what? In good faith, in the interest of good faith, I would do that. So I kind of dialed back some of the triggering a little bit, a lot really, and just ask the questions that men want to know the responses to, that women want to know the responses to, I give the responses to. And I remember when we did the episode about sex. I think it was if you would leave a relationship if your sex was bad, essentially. I think we had our heads viewership then, right?
Mhm.
And one lady in the comments said, this got the most response because the wording was not incendiary, right? But I found it very interesting that this particular question and the way it was worded, nobody seemed to be bothered about how it was worded. That was interesting to me. A couple of guys mentioned the fact that they're to observe that there was no hue and cry about the fact that I asked such a
Not
A
flat out.
lead, it's also a leading question if you read it properly.
I don't even think it's leading at all. I think it's direct as it gets. Particularly the first question. So let's jump into it, guys. Right? Let me jump into it. So the topic was, what is the problem with today's men? That's as point blank as it gets, right? Some people wanted to come with the essays and the lists and stuff like that, but
representing Barbados here, Dionne.
yeah.
So
So
you
Dion,
know.
I hope you're ready, right?
I,
What
I
is the
Mm.
told
problem?
y'all I am here to represent my point of view, not Barbados, not the populace of the world, not women around the world and other places. My view.
Mm.
Just Dion.
Yes,
All right,
man.
no problem. Ain't wrong with
Nobody,
that.
nobody sent
Uh,
me their list, their feedback to add to anything I had to say. If they had things to say, they could have sent me, but they didn't. So this
Okay,
is my point of view.
gotcha.
mhm.
All right, so
All
we good
right.
to go.
So
So,
for me, the first part of your question, when you say today's men, I don't think the problem is only specific to today's men. The
mhm,
problem or the problems that women perceive, I think, have always been there. That's the first thing. It
okay,
is the
Mhm.
difference now is society, how women and how society are viewing and reacting to the exact same problems that our parents and our grandparents had. So that's the first thing. And
Okay.
women will have all kind of lists about infidelity and lying and all these different things. But for me, I encapsulate all of that in maturity. Not immaturity, in maturity, but in the word maturity. And before the men get in the chat and say that I saying that they're immature, that's not what I'm
Look at
saying.
you. Look
Because I
at
know
you
that that's
backpedaling
happening.
already. Don't
Everybody saying,
backpedal, Dionne.
I say that Dionne said that men immature. That's not what I'm saying.
Mm.
So if y'all remember when we were in secondary school, everybody used to say girls mature faster than boys.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Girls used to wear that as a badge of honor and say, yeah, you know, we mature faster, yada, yada, yada. The problem is that that maturity gap doesn't disappear when you hit adulthood. So when
Mm-hmm.
you hit 21, or when we as females hit 21, and we expect that the men hit 21 at the same maturity level, that doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
25, 26, 27, 28, when women are looking to do the marriage, the kids, the settle down, find that steady partner, the men aren't there. For me, listening to your podcast, this is, I ain't gonna hold on, it was 4 weeks, 5 weeks.
Might be a little more than that.
I
The
mean,
general,
yeah.
the general theme is that men are hitting their stride in their late 30s, right?
Yeah.
So you hitting your stride in your late 30s, the woman wants to settle down between 25 and 35. That
Yeah.
is a 10 to 15-year age gap in terms of maturity. So from there, you got a problem. Regardless of all the other little things that we could sit down and pinpoint about the specifics that men do that women don't like, that they would consider problems. The major problem is the maturity level, the rate at which men mature versus the rate at which women mature. Plain and simple.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We cooking with gas.
I
Early
got so,
o'clock.
so many questions. I
Go
ain't gonna
ahead.
lie. I won.
Go ahead, my brother.
First things first. Good night, everybody that's joining us. Everybody is we have a bunch of people joining the podcast. Jimmy Alexander, Damian Daniel, Omar Burkett, Mario Loki, Terencia. Good night, good night, good night, good night. Jennifer, Neka is here. Good night. Tanisha Cross. Good night. Rihanna is here. Good night. Renee. That's Renee Rollins Taylor. Mark is here. Natalia is here. Natalia, I wish you were. Anyhow, Andre, we got everybody is talking preach. Everybody talking preach. Carrie is in here. Kwame is in here. Anyhow, so let me get into it. Your first point, you said, what was your first point again? I was trying to make notes. But your first point was hit me with it again.
That the problems aren't for today's men, they're general problems.
What problems are you talking about? What problems are they what crosses all generations of men? What issues do you think that men today have that women had that men had?
So the things that women complain about as it relates to the infidelity, that's the biggest one. The lack of communication. Those kind of things are not new to this generation. All those things existed for years.
Uh-huh.
It's just how women right now are dealing with them, and that's because of the societal shift of women.
Mm-hmm. So now the question comes in. So okay, do you think that even though there are similar issues, they're kind of the same issues? Do you think that men have gotten better over the years with communication? Do you find more men doing it, more men kind of willing to do it? And as it pertains to the infidelity, I know because social media has made everything instant and the world a bit smaller with how we communicate, therefore hookups can be easier to ascertain more so than 50 years ago, 20 years ago. Do you think that would you say that infidelity is really to do with maturity, or do you think that that is in the makeup of a man? What would be your thoughts on that, on those 2 points?
Let me start with the last one first.
Right.
I don't believe that infidelity is in the makeup of a man.
Good. Mm-hmm.
Because that would basically be telling me that it's inherent in an individual to be cheating, which doesn't make sense to me. Mm-hmm. You're not born with a cheating gene. It's not in your DNA. Mm-hmm. You understand? It could be something that is inherent in you, that is imprinted on you based on society and how you grew up and what you grew up seeing. But you're not born with that gene. So it's not something that is inherent in men to do. That's a choice at the end of the day. Now, back to your first point about, what was it again? The first part of the question?
About the first part was about the communication. Do you think that even though we still have challenges with communication. If you think that we have, I guess, through social media or through societal shifts and it being a bit more, it's not so ingrained in men or beaten into men's head that you have to be the paragon of strength and silence, as we once were told back in the day, our parents, our fathers were told. Do you think we would have, even though we have our communication issues, do you think we still have made some improvements in that regard?
I would say the improvements come later in life. So while you say yes, men have made improvements, but based on the previous versions of this podcast, the improvements are coming at 38, 39, 40. So have women looking to date within plus or minus 5 years of their age at 28. They're still encountering the exact same problem because the men aren't there yet. So unless you, the generation now, 40-year-olds and up, are teaching that or showing that to younger men, they're not going to get it any earlier than you did.
Oh, great. I love that point. That point is something we can get to, right? One last question before I let Derek jump. One last question before I let Derek jump in. You spoke about maturity, about how women obviously mature quicker than, well, girls mature faster than boys. Some of us have seen in secondary school, younger girls go for older guys, boys or men. And do you think that that means that women should seek partners that are much older than them, that are on their maturity level? Or do you think that there can be some discourse? We mentioned communication. Do you think that that's something that can be attained within your age group or even younger? I don't want to get into your business. However, I think based on the conversation we had before, this would be very interesting.
So my answer to your question is twofold. One, based on the fact that, so for me, growing up, becoming an adult 2021, the push at that time was to be a progressive woman, right? So I needed to go to university, I needed to get that job, get myself, know myself, become a person independent of any other person, and know myself before I look to somebody else. So at 21, I wasn't looking to get married. At 22, I wasn't looking for a 40-year-old man. You understand what I'm saying? Because I was looking to do stuff for myself, to be an independent person. That's a societal change for women because we came up in a time where, you know, it was looking to put women first, to put women forward, to move away from being homemakers, right? So that's one aspect as to why, for me, at that age, I wasn't looking to get married. I wasn't looking for older man. That's one. Two, the amount of songs, right, that are made about younger women and the amount of comments that are made about younger women looking for older men, why would a woman want to do it? I ain't saying she's a gold digger, but she ain't messing with no broke. Right? If you looking for an older man, you gotta be looking for him for his money. You just want to be arm candy. So why, as a young female, you can put yourself in that position? Last week we spoke about this partly, where we were talking about younger girls and what they're looking for in men, and how the generation under us, those females are looking for that man with the 6 figures and all that kind of stuff. So they're looking to date older men who could provide that stability. But those girls are looked down upon. So when you say A, you got to say B. So you're telling them, look for a mature man who's 40. But then when they do it, society, you know, washing them off and telling them that they're just looking to be somebody's trophy wife. So, like, to me, you're putting them in a position where the damnedest is doing, the damnedest is doing, right?
Okay, where is that pressure coming from? That societal pressure. Men or women?
Both.
Okay. What kind of men? Because I'm sure the guys that know the game and understand how this thing works, they understand. But yeah, and that's why men build themselves up to have access to women, right? A lot of times. Very rarely you will find. It's only now that we start talking about men developing themselves on the perspectives on let me do this for me. But before it's like I can do this for me because I can get women, right? So you find, I find rather, that more of the pressure will come from women who are struggling to attain that kind of life, that gold digger life, if you want to call it that. You had said something earlier that I was kind of trying to piggyback off, but I want to ask the question: where does the age gap and the disparity leave women? Because if at, as you say, 20, you're told, get out there, get after it, do what you got to do. But then by the time you come into you focusing on education, career, etc., nothing wrong with that. But by the time you come into the sexual marketplace now, you are pushing 30 and more. What are your options then?
It creates huge disparity.
Right. So where does that leave females?
In a tough position where you gotta be willing to sacrifice one thing over the other. So people plus or minus 10 from my age, let's say, are in a tough position where for some women, if they knew back then what they know now, they might have made the choice to get married to an older man and be done with it.
Right.
Because now it is not slim picking, but it's harder. So some person my age that was, let's say, let me give you an example. You graduate at the university, 22 years old, you're not looking to get married, you're out there, enjoying the single dating life, whatever. You meet somebody at 25, you get in a long-term relationship with them. Maybe it lasts 2.5, 3 years. You think this person is the one, they turn out not to be the one. You're heartbroken, you don't want to get into nothing serious. So you're 30, you can give yourself a year and a half, thereabout, to catch back yourself.
Right.
And you out and you dating again. And you're looking to meet somebody else. If that relationship fails, now this is only 2 relationships. Let's put this in perspective. So you don't have a string of this is your second. If that relationship fails, you are 35 years old.
Yep. And done.
So if you wanted kids, if you wanted that, you know what I mean, that family that society says you are supposed to have as a female, you run out of time. You're banging your head against a clock that is literally running faster than you can ever catch it. So it puts a lot of women in a bad place where they may feel they have to compromise what they really want to get what they want, if you understand what I'm saying.
Okay.
So not the real man that they thought they wanted, but they want a husband and kids. So now they kind of have a toss up in what they need to decide. And I don't know, I don't think that is solely a problem of men. So that's not a problem that I could attribute to men. That may be a problem attributable to society and where we have progressed as a society. But it puts a lot of women in a tough spot to me.
Okay. And that's fair. That's fair. I agree with you. Based on how you outlined it and stuff like that, it makes perfect sense to me. But my question is it impossible to go get the education and still be able to foster a relationship with somebody and work through it? And then I want to throw it back a couple episodes when I asked if we are a little too quick to kind of abandon our relationships, as you said, because the things you highlighted at the top of the show, but the lying, the lack of communication, the infidelity and stuff like that. Do we put too much weight on those things and say, well, shoot, because we've been so there that I am a strong, independent woman, hear me roar, I don't need a man, right? So you say, hey, I could do bad all by myself, kick rocks, and you let him out push off. And as you said, by the time you get to 35, you're looking around like, we're going on here.
So, to me, the definition of strong and independent does not have the word alone in it, does not have the word by yourself in it. So to say I am strong and independent, that automatically means that I won't go it alone, doesn't make sense. When we were talking behind the scenes before I agreed to do this, I told you I love to cook, but I don't cook every day. I will go and buy fast food sometimes because cooking every day is tiring. That's exactly the same as living your life by yourself. You could do it, but who really wants to do it? Do you want to be in that grind every single day by yourself? No, nobody don't want to live like that. No matter how much you might be able to handle it or think that you're handling it, nobody want to do that by themselves, man or woman.
I want to repeat that there.
yeah. And the people that are listening in the chat carry their friends. For real.
Repeat that there for me.
Which part? My analogy or?
No. That
if you want to say, correct.
That
Yeah,
nobody
start from the top.
to do it every day by themselves.
You don't.
No, that's the reality of the situation. As much as you might be able to, you don't want to.
You don't.
We're
still very social beings.
Yeah,
correct.
And I think we've conflated. And the thing is, you see, the thing is, we don't mind, and when I say we, I would say most men don't necessarily have a problem with the empowerment of women and the independence of women. Shoot, I think for me personally, because, and I know Derek can attest to this because we've talked about this behind the scenes, where he has a strong mother, single mother, I have a strong mother, single mother, and those were the role models we had. Our first, there was a point in time, especially in our formative years, teenage years, and going into adulthood, these were the women.
Parents we saw.
Exactly. Not saying that it's necessarily a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but they instilled how we want the women in our lives to be. So having a woman being independent and taking charge and being about her business is nothing new to us. And for some men, I don't have a problem. We don't have a problem with.
Let me be real, Neil. Let me be real. Within the Caribbean context, shoot, even within the Black community further afield, it's predominantly single mothers. Let me be real. Let me call a thing, right? It's more single mothers you will find than single fathers. You know what I mean? Or the nuclear family. Mm-hmm. So I don't think most men generally see they come up with a single mother who went work every day, dig it out the mud, get it, make sure everything was all right, you know. So I don't think that men grew up with this idea of like, sure, I want my woman barefoot and pregnant, because they can't relate to it. You just can't.
No, you can't relate to it, and that's the whole point, right? The whole point is that we don't have a problem with that. It's just that we as men, and I don't want to speak for women, but based on some of the things I've heard women say and how certain women act, is that they have conflated independence with not needing a man. Oh, sorry, not wanting a man. When really and truly, everybody wants companionship. Everybody wants where the 237 ladies, right?
Yeah, show them 237 ladies.
237 come. Everybody, man, woman, dog, everybody. I call it stirrings. Just get the stirrings, right? So, and not only that too, but as you say, you just don't want to go through life in just you shopping for yourself, grocery, paying bills, like everything just is on you. Especially if you live alone, you have to take care of your property, you have to take care of your finances, you have to take care, obviously, you want your personal stuff, gym, work, that kind of stuff. You still, you want that companionship. You want somebody that you can go through life with. So,
but Neil, before you go on, right, Neil? Now you mentioned that point about somebody you can go through life with. I think we need to recognize too that life does not start at 50, or life doesn't start when you retire at 65. You can still got years after that, right? And you don't want it to be a case where you work all your life, you make your money or whatever. I know you gotta spend it to do a world cruise by yourself.
Or be girls. Sorry, your single friends. Because if you look around, you realize nobody in there in a spot of bother.
But let me dive in the chat, Neil, because we haven't done that
just about to say it. Yep.
Let me dive in the chat a little bit and see if they got any lashes coming for Dionne yet. It seems like if she's been getting, everybody's on her side so far. Terence is saying that she saw it as an open question. Good. Nick is calling Dionne the rose amongst the thorns. Good night to you, Nick.
I actually wanted to say that earlier, but I say, you know what, I can hold off the metaphors and that kind of thing and just let whatever happen.
Yeah, Terence is saying there is a song called Go Away Little Boy. It speaks to this subject. We're going to let that one slide. Welcome, Steve. Kwame, I know the advisor told me men should never get married before 40. That's something that I've said for a while. When I was in school, I used to say 50, but I adjusted. I did a very poor risk analysis. A very poor risk analysis, and I was married at 24 years old.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Tanisha is saying, I know this advisor, and she remembers our discussion. Big up to your Carrie in the house. Say Silky, Adrian Seeley in the house. Good night, my brother. Welcome. Good to see you. Kwame is saying, I agree at 20 something. A man should be focused on himself, building his future, again, his empire on track. He ain't ready for no effective marriage. Facts and more facts. Good night. This is Chris Ashe. That is assumed as the pronunciation. Welcome to you. Traveling on. Natalia, men aren't born to cheat. Those that do make a conscious decision to do so.
Yep.
Yeah, can't disagree with that.
I made sure to answer that question because a lot of people can infer based on what you were saying, Dionne, is that, men can cheat. Just kind of brace yourself for it. And I wanted to hear from a woman's perspective what their thoughts were on infidelity, particularly when it comes to men.
Kwame say ancient times have always documented procreation and spreading seed to be a male consuming thought. Is it really not a male DNA thing, or is it that modern prejudices have made it into a negative thing? Good question. Nika is saying, well, into their 40s is when they are ready to show some level of maturity. That sounds as if it's a little loaded, but I'll leave it. The girls are parading. Nika is putting up hundreds. Full hundreds. Tanisha responds to Kwame and says documents from ancient times are largely written by men and from a very male perspective. Women's points of view are not as widely documented or have been told through the lens of a man. Also true. Kwame noted, but that reinforces my point about the male perspective. This is not heresy or third-party writing. It's men writing about men. Or do you mean that women then might have also felt the same way as now? That's probably what she means. I get that impression. Rian, welcome. Good to have you as always. I would say having the privilege of living in other places such as the UK 4 years and Trinidad 2 years, I believe how boys are socialized and raised have a lot to do with their maturity. I won't say men in general are immature. I would say most men in certain societies mature at 40, but most men in other societies mature at 25. Okay. All right. Tanisha, plus, cheating can't be in your DNA because marriage, relationships, monogamy are all social constructs. Therefore, all the rules around them are also social constructs. What may be in the DNA is a desire to love multiple people at the same time, something that our society isn't really up for. But we used to do that all the time. We just do it pretty low. So we up for it. We don't want to talk about it. Tanisha says, yes, that's exactly it. We can't really say for sure. It was only men who felt that way, right? Monogamy by that part there either. So it seems to boil down to computing views on what society should be. Jennifer says, my boyfriend before my husband was older, but my husband was my age. We were in. Get more power to you. Naked more women all over have the same problem. So immature in what way? It's interesting. Women all over do have the same problems.
I want to go back to Rihanna's point about in other countries maturing faster. I don't think that's what it is. I think that their societal construct is different from ours.
I would agree with that.
In Barbados, you will see Caucasian people get married way before Black people.
Yeah.
And they get married in their 20s and they settle down and they have the kids. Whether they stay happily married after that does not matter. But they do that because that is what they are socialized to do. That's what they see. But Black people don't see that. Whether it is in Barbados, it is in St. Lucia, it is in the US, it is in Canada, Black people are not seeing that. So regardless of whether you are mature enough to handle it, it's not what you see. So it's not something that you think is the right way to do things or the way to do. You kind of follow what everybody else in society is doing. So as a maturity decision, I think that's more of a societal construct that you've fallen into. It's like North America, when you go to university, you don't move back into your parents' house. So once you graduate at 21 or 22, that's it. You got to make it on your own. If you have to move back in with your parents, you're looked at as a failure. Whereas in the Caribbean, you can live all your time at your parents. You can live at your parents now at 40. And nobody ain't gonna really back her eye in that way. So that's a societal construct to me that Black people are not seeing, hence why we are in the situation that we are in. Hence why marriages are failing more. Hence why single mothers are prevalent more. Hence why divorces are prevalent more in Black people than in any other culture, any other race.
So my question to you then, Dion, do you think, because you I didn't really want to bring that up, but you did. So since you opened the door, we can go through it.
You might as well bring it up because the chat is asking what's the definition of maturity, and Rianne was saying, that she see it in the UK maturing at different
Right.
ages.
But
So
when we talk Caucasian versus Black, um, do you think that Caucasian women do not experience the same problems with their men that Black women experience?
no,
Yet they handle them differently
because of what they see.
because of
So
what they see.
I'm not going to talk about people's business, but there are lots of Caucasian people in Barbados who don't live good, but they're not divorcing.
Correct.
Oh
So
boy.
Correct.
their children are
Correct.
seeing that. So they're not
Well,
necessarily
what?
lucky couple,
But
but they're
speak to the.
housing, they're not showing down the house and cussing one another and whatever. The house is still a very civil place. So they're
Right.
still maintaining the family dynamic. Not everybody, people can jump in with generalizations and stuff, but not everybody.
It's
But
a
for the most
broadcast.
part, they don't divorce the way that we divorce. So their kids come along seeing that.
And it's interesting because, as you say, we get married later for shorter periods of time, and we marry less. Oh, sorry, let me put that the other way. We get married later. Sorry, we marry
And
less.
divorce
We marry
faster.
later, and we divorce faster. You know what I mean? Why is that? And we can't say that the Caucasian community is not experiencing the same challenges with their men that the Black community is.
Yeah, and to
So,
point in the chat, I'm not talking from a money perspective now, because you will be surprised to believe that most times when people divorce, it has nothing to do with money. Most
yeah,
divorces are not related to money.
No.
There are issues
But
that
shoot,
people have been talking
shoot.
about before they got married that they
yeah,
never talked about.
because
Things
shoot,
that took the
This
counseling
Bill
process
Gates.
the way it was supposed to be done, that they would have figured out before they even went down that aisle and had the call and
there you
had
go.
the simple things that sit and fester and then blow up into something bigger that shit could have been handled from the beginning.
Yeah, when they see Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates talking about getting divorced,
But it
Bill
and
has
Gates
talk,
not
nothing to
be.
do with
Dr.
money.
Dre, it can't be a money thing.
It's
Yeah,
not
It
money.
can't
Bill
be a
Gates not to sail out how many ways, boy. I say, well, if Bill Gates could get along and get divorced, well, shoot, because
There's no hope
a lot
for
of,
anybody.
it's. I found it interesting. I had this conversation recently where you know, we have had conversations over the last few weeks where a top priority for women in relationships is financial security, right? I'm not saying that women only want financial security and safety, but that is amongst some of the priorities that they're required to feel safe and secure within a relationship. And it's interesting where Bill Gates doesn't look like a guy. I mean, I don't know Bill Gates. I can't say he's in my contacts list, but I don't think Bill is a man that is known to be a philanderer. I don't know his wife to be, for all intents and purposes, their marriage looks to be one that is there's not they're not extramarital activities going on or anything like that. Again, we don't know, but one would think that $100 billion would keep the love
Most people have it.
together. You understand?
Most
I
people
mean,
have it.
but it's very interesting where you can have all the money in the world, you can have all of the money in the world, but if something has never been addressed, or there have been new things that have been addressed that have not been addressed, or if, as you say, because I can only assume having that much money means that you have a level of access and different sets of problems that we normal people have. And if we normal people can grow distant and we can have our issues and don't communicate with you got a foundation to run you got some humanitarian work to do in Peru. You got Microsoft to run. You got a TED Talks in France. You got you know what I mean? So, and that's where you see it with a lot of actors too, entertainers,
Different
because
set of realities.
different set of realities. You gotta be at different places and different times, and never underestimate the importance of physical being in the same space with your partner. So I when Derek sent that to me, it was heartbreaking. Cause I was like, if Bill could get divorced,
Two of the
me,
richest in the world have gotten divorced in the pandemic.
Yep.
Me as a thousandaire, me and there as thousandaires.
I'll tell you, right? You know that Dionne brings that up, right?
Yeah, divorce already.
you know me. I love Mr. Chris Rock, right?
Oh dear.
And Chris Rock says, marriage is hard. And Dionne said it. Suddenly the world has slowed down, grown to a halt. I know two of the richest men on earth getting divorced, right? Because it seems like if there are less places to go, there are less things to do. I ain't the host of this woman, and all of a sudden, shoot, we can't work it out, right?
You never know she's home because you got big man shit.
Yeah. So my guy Chris Rock.
So much is that, when they're busy at that level, you could grow apart and not notice.
Yeah.
Yep.
Easily.
Yes.
My guy Chris Rock, right? Chris Rock says, if you want to know if marriage is hard, look at Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela was in prison 27 years, hard labor, no problem. He come out, spend 6 months with his wife, gotta get divorced. You know what I mean? I can't take this.
Different people.
Different people. But different brand of stuff. So let me keep me back in the chat, right? Jennifer is saying she got married outside of BIM because his level of maturity was different. But clearly they had a disconnect now. And Kwame, Middle Eastern, Asian, and Caucasian societies have these issues. It seems to be endemic in the Black Western communities. We just talked about that, right? It seems like we handle these problems a little differently from other societies.
The reason why is because we're not taught. So my parents have been married longer than I've been alive. So I have an example to work with. Right. Now, if they had issues, extramarital or whatever the case may be, I didn't know. I never saw it. But whatever issues they had, they worked them out.
Correct.
But a lot of us are not taught how to process things. So we are not taught healthy love. We are not taught conversation, communication. A lot of that stuff, to me, we are not taught how to do. We learn that on the fly, trial and error, picking up things that we did wrong or we did right from previous relationships and moving forward.
And TV and media.
I was literally just thinking the same.
When that goes back to the same societal construct that I'm telling you about. They're seeing people trying to make things work. But if we don't have that example, so you say, are we giving up too easily? A lot of us are from single parent homes, so they gave up. So who are we to be any different than them not to give up?
Yeah. But you see, I got a question before that you get back into the chat, right? Because there's something that we keep talking and alluding to as we go on, and it's something that we can get into eventually, and that is the responsibilities of the society to teach the younger people about the nuances of relationships. So I believe that the purpose of any life is to procreate and continue that life, right? Granted, we are more evolved than any other species on the planet, but really and truly, we are no better than the beast in that if we want our species to keep going and propagate, we have to reproduce, right? So therefore, we have the construct of monogamy. But I still think it's incumbent on the older generation, not necessarily our father and mother. Granted, that's the direct way that we can learn and the non-verbal way that we could communicate. But you see spaces like this and you simply having female friends or younger friends or nieces or whomever, you as a woman can look at them and say, okay, I realize you saying you have this problem, that problem, or this man doing this problem, whatever. And you can kind of guide that person and say, yeah, you need to leave out that, or you need to do this differently, or you should do X, or you should do Y. Instead of, because what I find we are doing, men and women, are teaching negative stereotypes and behaviors to the younger generation. You know what I'm saying? I mean, women are, I'm a diva, I'm a queen. Men got to jump through hoops to get to me. Man, I am a lady killer. I can have 6 and 7 different women. I can have burner phones. I can do as I like. So I think that within the context of relationships, I think it's incumbent for us to kind of talk to the generations below and let everybody know. But it's not me to educate young women, and it's not for you to educate young men. I feel men should groom the young boys. Well, no, don't let me say that different. Let me say that different.
I understand what you mean.
That's a different context in certain circles. But you have to kind of raise the younger generation. Too many of our younger generation seems lost. I mean, it's very daunting
because they're
to
not
us.
being raised. Yeah, so that's the long and short of it. I had this conversation at work today. We have people who have children, but they're not raising their children. They just had them. And whether
Literally
it
had
is
this conversation with my son's pediatrician today.
whether it is TV and international TV, somebody else is doing that job for them.
Yep.
And that's the
Yep.
challenge that we have, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Fact. All right. There. I see chat going, so I don't know if you can catch up.
I try to
Sorry.
but it's cut off. It's cut off some of them, so I am actually missing. Let me have to go back.
Where were you last?
Oh, Lord, we are far back.
We are far back. I had actually stopped by where we talked about. I think it was Kwame was talking about how we handle it in the other societies, Caucasian and
That is
and that is far.
I see Kwame responding to Kwame saying, makes sense. These topics are taboo during dating too. So catch-22. That's where you are, because that's where I can't go back any further.
I can't go back either.
Let me see. The chat has gone on for a very long time since we last stopped. So maybe trying to skip a lot of stuff that happened in the chat and pick up from a point.
Yeah. We have to do that.
We not ignore you all, just, we want to keep the conversation going.
The conversation is riveting.
Yes.
Riveting.
But I want to get back to, I don't know if Derek, you want to keep going to what we have there, or if you want us to dive back into the conversation with Dionne.
Yeah, let me keep the conversation going, man. People seem to be engaging with it as well, so let me keep the conversation flowing.
So Dionne, now I know it is we are not asking you to speak for every woman, right? Because that's not fair to you, right? Like you have different experiences than everybody that is a woman, right? But from your circles of friends and from things you would have seen personally, what would you say generally are, because you mentioned the maturity level and you've mentioned, well, I think maturity level is kind of a big one. But in terms of is the one. But I mean, surrounding that, you mentioned communication, you mentioned the maturity level. But what other things are you, like, you could go anecdotal if you wish. What certain situations are happening out there that women are having problems with men?
I think those are the fundamental problems. Everything is going to come back to communication and fidelity.
Mm-hmm.
And those are encapsulated in maturity.
But the reason why I want you, the reason why I want you to spell it out though is because I find people have a problem with correlation, right? I find if you tell people, it comes to do with your development, your maturity, it has to do with your communication, etc. I find people may say, well, that don't apply. Their ego kicks in. That don't apply to me because I got my own business, or that don't matter to me because, I feel like you have to kind of spell out why maturity is playing a part in the way you live your life, the way you see relationships, the way you get over your trauma, you heal or don't heal.
Is that if you don't understand the statement, your ego is in the way and you're not mature enough to handle the conversation. So that's how maturity is getting involved, right? If I tell you this is the issue, we having a communication issue, and you be like, nah, I got it covered though, I can communicate well, and you handle it, you like this. Maturity is your problem because you're not mature enough to handle the truth. You're not mature enough to hear somebody else's point of view and acknowledge that you might have a problem because you think you got it covered. So that's why when I was thinking about what to say, I used the word maturity because you can't walk through life thinking that you're good at everything and that you are perfect all the time, every day, all day. Mm-hmm. So, until you're mature enough to get feedback, some of the feedback can be junk. Let me be real. Some people can just tell you things
because they want to talk.
Not necessarily because it's for development, but you gotta be mature enough and open enough to hear the feedback and realize, this person might be right. And that's a fundamental problem in relationships in general. And is something that we probably all have been guilty of. Where we hear things, but we don't hear them. The person is saying something, but we don't hear it. So we hear the words, but we don't really understand it.
We are trying to understand. We just hear. It's called listening to respond, and I think everybody at some point is guilty of it. So yes, I completely agree, and that's why the maturity thing is very important because people see maturity. I think when you hear, "Oh, that's person immature," you're not mature enough. You're not mature enough. So what do you mean? I work. I don't play games. I don't rumble. I don't dress like you know what I mean. Like maturity, some people see as a physical thing or a correlation between being a little boy or a little girl, right? So you say I'm immature. Like if somebody say, "Oh, Neil, you're immature," like me not being aware enough to be like, "Oh, I'm not immature." I move like a man. I move in circles like a man. I handle my business like a man. As a father, I deal with my business. But that doesn't mean I'm not immature. It
Maybe we
does
need
not mean that.
to say emotionally mature then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So not
that's
physically mature, meaning that you hit puberty, but emotionally mature, that you have that emotional intelligence to handle various scenarios, right?
hear that there. Emotional intelligence. You don't like them sort of terms,
No,
emotional
no, no.
intelligence,
No, I can deal with that. I have
ability.
no problem at all with that particular term. That's something they study and all that when it's at Ernest. So that's fine with
That's
me.
something to me that everybody should study.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Emotional intelligence. So I've done that test, the emotional intelligence test, right? And when you do it, you will be surprised at the things that it tells you about yourself that you didn't know. You might not think you know yourself, but you don't really know yourself till you do a quiz like that, a test like that, and get back the results. And it grades you on various scales. And you understand why you react certain ways to certain people, to certain situations,
Mhm.
why
Okay.
you
I
avoid
like it,
certain
Dion. I like it. I like
scenarios.
it. I like it. Because as you were talking, the word that came to me there was accountability, right?
Mhm.
Um, that's the word that comes to me most often. And there's a
Mhm.
saying, and I think accountability needs to go both ways, right? Both male and female. And the feeling is these days that women do not want to be held accountable for the things they do. Um, that is a general consensus.
Mhm.
Even though, oddly enough, no, we're hearing that men do not want to be held accountable. Um, so it's
I think
interesting.
society does not want to be held accountable.
Mm.
Yeah.
Not one sex over the other. In general, right now we are such a fast-paced society that if it ain't working, we just move on to the next thing. It's happening with jobs, it's happening with relationships, it's happening with everything, right? We live in for the 150 characters in a tweet kind of life. Fast-paced, just moving all the time. So nobody wants to be accountable for anything. You stay in any workplace. So I work in many companies for people with staff, and as soon as something goes wrong, regardless of how small the thing is that went wrong, nobody wants to do it. I had a friend who used to say that she had 3 children, the 2 she gave birth to, and not me. Because whenever anything went wrong in the house, it was not
Not
me
me.
that did it.
Yeah.
Not me.
Wow.
So the 2 she gave birth to, and not me. And that's what the workplace is. That's how it's. Nobody is gonna say, "Yeah, my bad, that was me."
Not me to cry. Um,
It, you see it. I see it every day, and it's not an age thing. So it is not that it is only young people doing it or older people are doing it.
Are not people,
Everybody
yes.
is doing it.
yeah. I had a tutor would tell you in terms of psychological stages of development and stuff like that, they would tell you the ages are fixed, but the stages are not. So you will find somebody are old, but still at a stage that you would associate with a 9 or 10 year old. So having said all that, Dion, the next part of the question is what must they do? What must men do to level up? In your opinion, what do you think men have to do to bring themselves up to the level that will be more acceptable to women?
Speaking from the point of what you were discussing about maturity and you know.
I think it goes back to what I said at the top, where I say people in your age group, know that you are understanding yourselves better. know that you are more confident in who you are as a person. You need to be able to tell that and show that to younger people coming up, to younger men coming up, because you don't want that they have to struggle to learn it the way you did. That shouldn't be the way we want society to function. That because I went through it and I had it hard, the next person coming behind me has to walk that same path. You want that. We constantly evolve and we constantly looking to be better. If you have a son, you're raising that son to be the best version of himself. You don't want him to walk the path that you walk to get to 40. So that's the only way it
Facts.
can be better, right? Is if there's an example that is set that people can see to follow. So our generation didn't necessarily have that example in terms of men who were effective communicators. They were few and far between, to be fair.
True.
And they
True.
probably weren't even present in a lot of cases because we have a lot of single mothers.
Correct.
So we need people who are now understanding themselves to show younger people that path.
Yeah, that's the purpose for this space. That's one of the reasons why we came up with the idea to do this, to kind of get our story out there a little bit, because as I keep saying all the time, Neil and I, we might be a couple of the older people um, in this particular chat right now,
It's true.
but you will see. Hey, come on,
Come on, Dionne. Don't get on
All
that.
right,
Mm-hmm.
but us at our seasoned age, and then there are a whole set of males coming behind us, um, all the way into secondary school, who they're experiencing the same problems that we experience in terms of the you're not necessarily being heard, or what you're saying is being disregarded, that kind of stuff. So we felt it was important to be able to have this dialogue, to get our feelings out there, to hear from people like you, to get your feedback as well. So, from what you're saying to us here tonight, it seems like we have some growing to do as men.
I
Um,
think everybody has growing to do because I say men have emotional maturity to gain, but women do too. There are a lot of women out there who can't handle the truth either. So
Um, not that I want to get divisive or controversial, right? But would you say that it is along because basically it's all going to come back to maturity, right? So you would say, granted, it may look different for how a woman gains that maturity for a man, but would you say that essentially it is that same thing? And if so, how would it differ for a woman? Like, how would you advise a younger woman to gain maturity as she comes up in the game?
the main difference is that women have always had an outlet.
mhm.
Mm,
Have always had an outlet. So even if my girl circle wasn't altogether mature, we could bounce ideas off each other. We could have that conversation. Men weren't really having that conversation. You were drowning your sorrows in a drink and on to the next one. The men would tell you pick yourself up and move on to the next girl kind of way. You weren't
ah,
having you weren't having that conversation. So even if you had feelings, so even if you knew had feelings you wanted to express, you weren't going to your group of men and say, man, yo, I feel real bad here today. You weren't having that conversation because that space wasn't created for you to have. It's
mm,
there now at 40. But at 25, you weren't having an emotional conversation with a group of 25-year-olds.
mm.
Nope.
I mean, it's funny because I did remember a time where I was in my 20s. I think it was mid 20s, as you said. And I went to one of my friends and I said, man, I don't know, boy. And this was before I kind of understood what was going on with me in terms of my depression and everything. And I was like, man, I don't know what's going on, boy. I just, every day I get up, I feel kind of funky, right? My mom tell me, man, look, we getting up tomorrow night, man. You just need to walk up
Hit
on a
time.
young girl and drink some drinks. You know what I mean? Yeah, essentially hit some here, drink some drinks, right? And, in that moment, I felt as though that's not the answer. Because if that was the answer, if that was the answer, then it would be very easy for everyone, not only men, to get over whatever they're feeling or whatever. But I do agree. Um,
So
you see.
talking about talking in parables.
Say again.
The chat is talking about talking in parables. I think somebody said that people are speaking in parables.
Lord.
Yes, sir. Do men communicate or do they speak in parables and expect understanding?
Well, you see,
No,
to be
I
fair,
actually think, right? I actually think
mhm,
that men are very direct. But it kind of comes back to what we said, in terms of you say something, but it's not necessarily heard. I shared my experience with the buying of the furniture or whatever. You
mhm.
want this chair, I want that chair. And then all of a sudden it becomes, but honey, you sure you don't really want this chair? I said, well, I want this chair. He's like, nah, this is the chair you want. So it's like, sure, if you want that chair, let me get that chair. You know what I mean? So I don't think men, I have never known men to speak in a roundabout way. They would not speak at all, which in itself is a response, right? So men would, to avoid the noise, to keep the peace, men would say, you know what, this ain't worth the fight. Just don't say nothing at all.
And then there's the opposite side of that, where there are men that try to communicate, but they don't know how to. They're not comfortable doing it. And that is where I guess the parables will come in. Because, like Derek said, there are men that can say, let me tell you something, X, the sun coming up tomorrow and it's setting in the west. You can either deal with that or don't deal with that. You could come and cry a yam, you could bring scientific proof, whatever, but that is that, regardless of your feelings. And then there are men that don't know how to. It's like,
But
I
why, Neil?
find,
Why?
There's
Why?
one type of man that y'all missing. The man that is generally not direct is the man that's not being direct on purpose.
well, that, I mean, he has an ulterior motive. That's a man that he may have some, you know, he may have something in the cards under his sleeve that he don't want to present or doesn't even want to recognize himself.
Which
But
this
there you were making.
type of woman will not easily recognize unless she's seen it before.
Mm.
So I you
Well,
understand where the ladies in the chat are going to be coming from, right? So and you gotta remember that you're speaking now from a different position than you would have been speaking from 10 years ago.
Right.
mm-hmm.
So don't necessarily discount the experience of the women in the chat that say that men speak in parables, because a lot of times you will be with some person who is saying one thing, or you think they're saying one thing, and their actions don't match up with that, or they say one thing today and they say something else tomorrow. But that's because they're speaking in parables on purpose. But you only realize that at the end. You don't realize that up front.
Mm.
You
Yeah,
see?
but if that's the case, then you can't watch your words, you gotta watch your actions.
Facts,
So it's still not really parables. It's just he's saying one thing, as you said, but what is he showing you? What is he doing?
The challenge is that the only way you can ever figure out that it was a parable is from experience, right? You don't know it's a parable until after the fact, because at the point
True.
in time when it's said, it comes across as truth.
And the thing is, I see this coming straight back to what you were saying, the emotional maturity, because whether a man struggles to communicate by speaking in parables, meaning that he is not sure how to communicate, or he has something underhanded to kind of keep guarded or close to his chest, or it is a situation where the man doesn't even understand his feelings and emotions and is causing him to act in ways and communicate in ways that don't make sense. It comes back down to, as you say, an emotional maturity. Shoot, there is even making the point that you can communicate with a woman and the woman not understanding where you're coming from or what's happening. And some women react in a way where it's like they're dismissive or they're argumentative or anything like that. And so when you have, okay, for example, I don't have the emotional maturity to communicate well. You don't have the emotional maturity to, you, as far as you're concerned, you want direct, right? You want a man to tell you X is X is Y. Shoot, I even dated a woman years ago that she used to test me to see what kind of man I was. And when I say a test, I don't mean the subtle test. I mean, she literally would pick arguments to see if it's the type of man that would meet that energy or bypass that energy or tell she said. And the joke about it is the joke the joke about it is that a lot of the times I like, but what is this an argument right now? What was happening right now? And she will keep going on. I said, look, you know what? I can talk to you later. And then she will come out and say, yeah, I just wanted to see what you were doing in our situation. That dating did not last very long.
It couldn't.
2 weeks at best, right?
Basically, that's the maturity problem for you, right? That person wasn't in a mature space where you were trying to get into.
Mm-hmm. But that's the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is that, yes, I understand some men are afraid to communicate because of, we know how society has ingrained in us men to be silent paragons of strength and silence, and we are not saying anything as a sign of weakness and anything like that. And sometimes when we do try to communicate or we show emotion, we are ridiculed for that. Right?
That is the point there more than anything. And I discovered it with this since we got into doing this whole podcast and we've been on this journey, right? Because before we actually did the podcast, I would have been posting stuff for discussion purposes on Facebook, right? And what I found, the first couple of topics, the ladies ran off with, you know what I mean? And then when guys try to engage them, I see my boy Kevin Seeley in here, shout out Cutting. When guys try to engage the ladies, it didn't go well, right? Why? Not because the points were refuted, but it was a case of you start talking about the spelling errors in the guy's point, or the use of subject and verb agreement as syntax, stuff that have nothing at all to do with the argument, but the argument was, the person himself was shot down, therefore his argument was negated, if you get what I'm saying. And I found that when the ladies were paraded in the comment section, the member messaged me privately, yo, man, this way it is, you ain't telling the lies, or, man, this is the case, And then at the end of it, what they say, man, keep up the good work, man. You're doing a good thing, keep it up. Because they feel as if anything they say, they're afraid to speak. They're afraid to speak. And I don't necessarily think it's a case of afraid and like, or somebody gonna bite off my head. It's like, they just ain't got that energy and that emotional investment in the argument like that on that particular forum. I tell you, there are guys that I speak to almost every day now because of this podcast. We knew each other before, but now I speak to these men every day. They message me something related to this kind of stuff.
Is that I've seen that outside of this podcast, I've seen that in other forums or in other posts on Facebook, where I think the man that posts is genuinely trying to get to the root of the problem, genuinely does not understand. So I saw it with life and leggings, for example. So I would have this conversation at work in the work office, and I would see people talking about it on social media as well. And I was actually surprised at the amount of men that didn't understand or didn't realize how certain things were affecting women. Not because they're insensitive, not because they are, jackasses or whatever the case may be. They genuinely did not see it the way women saw it.
Yeah, they can't relate.
Certain things on social media to ask the question, not because they're being facetious, not because they don't think there's a problem, but they were genuinely curious as to what.
Just trying to know.
Yep.
And the women would jump on them and post after post after post. Women who consider themselves feminists would jump on them, post after post after post. And the man would just be like, all right, and throw his hands and walk away. But for me, that was a teachable moment. And if you jump on the person and beat them down into the ground, you miss the teachable moment. So some person that you could have educated to help in the cause, no, is disinterested. Not that they're against your cause, they're disinterested because you beat them down so much that they just like throw their hands and be like, yeah, well, I don't need this stress in my life.
Correct. No.
For me,
point out someone. Okay, go ahead.
For me, I prefer things to be a teachable moment. If you don't know, that's fine. We can have a conversation about it. And then we can move on from there, as opposed to shouting you out the conversation. Which happens a lot.
No, for me, how I approach things as a person is that I try to get both sides of the coin, right? Like, for example, if I'm watching CNN and MSNBC about the coverage of what's happening in the world, I go to Fox. Like around elections, I would listen to Fox because it is all fine and good to hear things from the left's point of view, but then I want to hear what's going on the right. I kind of pick and choose what makes sense to me as an educated man, as an intelligent person. It goes back to the same thing, like stuff like life and leggings. Now, obviously, I know of women that have been harassed. I know of women that have had sexual abuse and trauma and everything like that. And I know of guys that, you know, how they speak about women. I mean, I don't have any friends that are sexually abusive or anything like that, or have been sexually abusive to women. However, we all know a man that would say, I will go and cheat with this girl, or we're going to do this and do that. And maybe like seats at a woman, catcall a woman and everything like that. No, I find, as you said,
come on, man, this is an international broadcast, though.
Right. That okay, all right.
Catcalling, man.
Catcalling is the correct word.
Come on, man, right. Get it together.
I'm sorry. I apologize to my international viewers.
Come on.
You just want to excuse. That's so quick. You just want to excuse. But yes, so to me, I think I agree with you, Dionne, in terms of the teachable moment. I find that because men go through a lot of issues too, right? And we feel as though there is never a space or time for us to speak about our issues, right? Every time we come and say, we men, for example, they're going to touch on this in a further podcast, but just as how women have struggles within society, like obviously women struggle in the workplace, and women struggle because of sexuality and how society has placed a lot of things on them sexually and as mothers and everything. That men have struggles too. They're not the same struggles, but men do feel the pressure of certain things too. And I find that when you bring this up in whichever circle, regardless of if you initiate the conversation or if it comes up through an organic conversation, there's never the right time for a man to say, as much as, everybody got problems, we may have problems too. For example, men cannot fail in this society. Men cannot fail in this society. I feel as though a man has the incumbent pressure on him to succeed, to make things happen and make things right, to earn, to produce, to be a productive member of society. For example, if a man decides to go and get a sugar mama, that man is a waste man. However, if a woman look into a man that happens to be a billionaire, that's her fortunes. So there are certain pressures that men go through, and we've tried, and the thing is, I see Terenci asking, why can't they fail? Because society at large does not recognize a man that fails. If you look at the amount of people that are homeless, the amount of people, versus men versus women, people that are homeless, people that have suicide rates around the world. This is not only Barbados, this is around the world. Men feel the brunt and pressure because of what they perceive as failure and what society has placed on them as failure. We've always heard those stories in Japan and in China where men lost millions of dollars in the stock market and they try to kill themselves, right? Women do feel the pressure. Right. Women do feel the pressure, but they feel the pressure as mothers, as parents, as trying to be as equal in the workplace as a man. However, if a woman fails, she has a lot of things, not saying they're excuses, but there are things that she can fall back on that would give her a kind of, all right, I understand, right? Whereas men don't have that. You understand? I know there was a man earlier this year, he lost his job and he went missing for, I think, a period of time. And they asked him, why you went missing or anything. That he said he lost his job. He's the only breadwinner in his house. He has a wife and I think it was 2 or 3 children, young children or whatever. And he lost his job. And he simply did not know how to come home and tell his family that he does not have money. Therefore, he went and lived on the street for a period of time. Now, some people may call that a coward. And that's the thing. A lot of people will come and say, oh, that's a real man. He's a coward, this and that. And that's exactly the point. Because the pressure is so hard on that man to provide for his family. And he doesn't know what to do, especially in these pandemic times. He literally walks away, right? So there are a lot of pressures, and this is not the space for that. This is not the space to get into that. But the point I'm trying to make is that when we try to bring up these things, we get ostracized. We get, but shoot.
Man up and deal with it.
Not only that, Derek, but we could come and say, we could be in a forum and say, boy, I remember a time a woman grabbed my penis in the middle of a fight and I felt real uncomfortable and they felt this and that and the next and the third. A woman is going to bring up, Oh, but shoot, you talking about that happened to you once, so this happened to me every day, this and that. But that is one incident. Go ahead.
I will say that we as society have to be careful to not to put down or make our struggle less because somebody else has a different struggle. And we do it a lot, not just with the whole sexual harassment thing, but with everything. So I'm struggling, but because St. Vincent had a volcanic eruption, I shouldn't complain because my struggle is insignificant to theirs. And for the time you do that, the weight isn't lifted off you, you know. But see, people think that saying that means that, oh, their struggle is bigger, so my struggle is not bad, so I could just pick up and move on. That's not what you've actually done. You haven't processed your struggle. And we do that a lot with lots of things where we think we are insignificant because somebody else is struggling with something else that we perceive to be greater.
And not only that too, but in that same vein, we as human beings, I'm not just saying men and women, human beings, this is where the ego comes in. My struggle is more grandiose than your struggle because I don't know your struggle. I don't know what you go through as an individual. I don't know.
We also don't know what each other can bear, which is the most important part.
Who use it knows.
Exactly. So for me, I have my struggles, the same ash fall. Shoot. I get up, I literally look at the ash and they say, you know what? I have family in St. Vincent, so I know what they're going through. I know what Vincentians are going through. So I see the ash fall, I say, child boy, this is, whoa, look at this. I never thought in my life I had to deal with ash fall. I sweep it up. But then when you hear other people talk about it and how people regard the ash fall, you would think that, shoot, we get ravaged by the ash fall. I'm not saying that it is not a thing, but we kind of, I don't want to say pump up, but because we don't have, I don't know if there's a lack of empathy, sympathy, or just the ego part of it.
I think because everybody's emotional space is different, we're going to handle situations differently. So whereas you might have been able to compartmentalize the ash fall and think, we ain't got that much ash, I can just go and sweep it up. St. Vincent really got the struggle. My focus is on them. To some person else, the weight of the ash and the fact that they have to do all this cleaning, you don't know if they have to do it by themselves. You don't know if they were already under pressure because of the pandemic and they weren't working. You don't know if they got asthmatic, so they can't go outside and clean it. You don't know if they had parts of their house that they needed to clean or they needed to get fixed before the ash come and put a spoke in their wheel. Everybody has their own set of struggles already, day-to-day struggles. So when you add something on top of it, you will handle it differently than me. My strengths are not your strength. So whereas you might be able to overcome the ash problem, somebody else out there crying rivers of tears because of the ash problem. And I think that is a challenge that people face, not man or woman, but people, where we kind of do this comparison thing with the struggle, but we don't compare strengths and weaknesses. So you understand what I'm saying? So we expect everybody to bear each burden equally, and that's not fair.
And I do agree because at the end of it, it comes back down to understanding that everybody's struggle is valid.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody's struggle is valid. If you have, and I quite agree with you, like I am not negating what women go through with sexual harassment, issues in the workplace, as mothers, working mothers, single mothers, men that have been deadbeats to women. I am never going to knock that because those are real struggles. However, I saw somebody posted this, we need to normalize men creating that space to speak about their struggles too, because men struggle. Granted, we are not struggling as women struggle, but we have our struggles too. The pressures of making sure that we do right by ourselves, our communities, our families. A lot of people like to say the patriarchal system. The society has been made for men by men. Fair enough. But within that context, there's a standard by which those men that have built the society have for men. And not every man measures up to that. Shoot, we are black people in a third world country. We can argue that the society was made by white men for white people. So then, even though, yes, it's a patriarchal society, how do we men Derek and I, how do we measure up in this context? Right? How do we, especially with certain things that have been placed against us, we have struggles too. So we need to stop negating struggles. We need to say, okay, you know what? You have your space. We understand women go through this, but there are also spaces where men go through things. Derek and I were doing research during this podcast. Quite literally, we do not know of any space in Barbados that's well, there's Mensa, but Mensa's we talk about right? But in terms of a space where men can speak openly and honestly about certain things that plague them, we don't know of any space in the Caribbean, podcast or otherwise, where they talk about things that we are talking about. We've seen it popping up over the last 10 years, five years really, on YouTube and on internet and stuff like that. But really and truly before then, we've always had The View, we've had Oprah, we've had Steve Harvey, we've had we've had a whole host of things for women. There's nothing wrong with that. We understand the market. Housewives are at home during the day. That is when you will market to that demographic. What do they want to hear? They want to hear about their struggles. There's nothing wrong with that. However, we need to start getting to a point where we have this space and we can speak about things without hearing about the patriarchal system, hearing about
toxic masculinity.
Toxic masculinity. We hear when there's deadbeat fathers, when it's always cheap. We need to have a space where, yes, men are all of these things. We cheat, we're deadbeat fathers. Some of us are committed, some of us communicate well. We as men got to figure it out. We cannot do that on our own without the help of women, simply because we are looking to engage women to procreate. Yeah. We got to do some internal stuff. We got to get a real little count and say, man, well, like socks, little boy, the same way you're supposed to do whatever. And women need to do that too. But I still think that within the relationship context and the meeting of the genders, we need to have spaces like this where we can have this discourse. That's my one rant for the podcast. Thank you.
One for sure.
Derek, you've been kind of quiet, man.
I've been kind of reading through some of the stuff in the chat, or attempting to keep up. And I still find it interesting that some of the stuff, as we speak, we talk about not dismissing each other's feelings. We still kind of going back to some of that. Shout out to my boy Moxie for shooting his shot at Dionne live and direct in the chat. And big up Kevin.
Justin Marvel. Yeah, Justin Marvel in the chat, and he shot his shot.
Yeah, he did. He shot his
shot. He means Justin Marvel.
Justin Marvel. Moxie.
I know who he means.
Apparently, he's just here to watch Dionne, so we gotta get Dionne every week.
You see, this is what I was afraid of, because we didn't want to go through these theatrics to get people to come through,
Yeah, you know what I mean? Shout out to Kevin.
I was just about to say, Moxie, I can defend you. Moxie did not shoot his shot. Moxie was just shouting out a fellow classmate. His name. Right, Moxie?
To Kevin and Terencia here, setting up a date in the in the chat live and direct as well. So
hold on. If anybody in this chat gets married because of what we're doing, you got to invite the Senate to the wedding.
Straight.
Shoot, my man Derek can sing at it, and if you want me to, I could say some nice words with both of y'all. At the reception. I could be the host for the reception.
Okay. What are the challenges of today's mate? Ask Kevin. Problems usually are something that happens to something that was working or running fine. Oh Lord, Andre Springer says, "Don't be afraid to bring Dionne often."
No.
Right. Healthy discourse was needed. Spaces for men to be open without fear of ridicule. It's easy to say that. It's all really good in theory, but as soon as something is said, that I don't want to use the word triggered. But there are a lot of terms that you see coming, like patriarchal system, for example. Toxic masculinity is another one. Misogyny is another one that comes up. You don't hear chauvinist so much these days, but that's another one that comes up. So even when men try to communicate these things, there is a bit of these shaming tactics that come up to kind of press down men a little bit. It's just a little funny to me. So
Have you ever heard the term toxic femininity?
I've never heard it.
I have
I've
only
never.
heard that within the
I've seen
last
it.
2 years. I
I've
have
seen it.
seen, but that's what I'm saying. In the last 2 years,
Yeah.
the conversation is now shifting to toxic femininity, and that getting pushed back.
Yeah, I've seen it in action, but I've never heard the term used. And I'll say
Is there a word,
this.
like we have? Is there a synonym for misogyny?
There is, but I
For
can't
women?
remember what it is. I can't remember
I
what it
love that.
is.
I love
I
that.
Google that right now. There is
Tanisha,
one.
is there a synonym for misogyny? I feel like a cultural studies major would know the answer to this question.
Yeah, hopefully
Man,
she
shoot,
does.
we got a chat, man. We got a chat. Chat. What is the female equivalent to misogyny? I can't say that. I know. I've always been hearing about this misogyny and toxic masculinity. I can't tell you about
Misandry.
misandry,
Misandry. Yeah.
MYS or
MIS.
MIS.
MISANDRY. The hatred or dislike of men.
So Fernando, my man Fernando, good night, boy. He on the ball. And yes, for Mark Anthony. All right. Don't shame up on the people podcast.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, as I said, I've seen it in action before. That toxic femininity that you're talking about, um, where people kind of gather their echo chamber around, and everybody has their say, and everybody dance around the fire and laugh for the men and that kind of thing, you know. For example, there was back when there was I've seen a clip of a woman on TV, mainstream TV, mainstream television, talking about cutting off her husband's penis,
You mean
and that was
as in something she thought about doing or that she did?
something she thought about doing, you know, and that was met with cheers from the audience and the people on the panel, and that was cool. That was cool. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Mind you, hold on, but mind you, in places like there's mutual, all of these organizations wanting to put a stop to that. But here
Right.
over in the West, we could get on TV and talk about cutting off my penis and how woo.
You know what I mean? Wendy Williams did a show about Trevor Noah. Trevor Noah was going up with this girl. I can't remember her name, Kelly something. Those who are big on the those who are big on the celeb life and stuff like that may know who Trevor Noah's girlfriend is. You could drop that in the chat for me. But Wendy Williams was literally encouraging this girl to get pregnant for Trevor Noah. He said, and she used the word security bike. You know what I mean?
I just guessed that. I didn't even know.
Right. And she was like, "You ain't even gonna worry about this getting married thing. Just get pregnant." And again, Wendy Williams is on TV, mainstream TV, right? And when they come here now and they bring it from the mainstream international television, they come here to Barbados and they say, suppose I had written in the chat, what is wrong with today's women? And left that on the Facebook page yesterday. I could only imagine the circling of the wagons that would have taken place and the amount of people that would have been calling for my head. Shoot, a couple of weeks ago, I made a post about, thank you, Minka Kelly, thank you. I made a post and the preamble to the post was, a friend of mine asked me why certain women do not get married, and that led me to thinking. And then I went to the topic. And as I told you before, I won't flare my DMs. What kind of sexist comment is this? What kind of sexist comment is this? To which I said, did you read the question? But I didn't get that far. But maybe you should read the question.
And I need to say it again, right? If you all get down, because we've had this before where people, I ain't gonna call it gender, but people, women, because that's where we get a lot of our pushback from. Women, one woman fly at Derek too and say, I only watched the first 24 minutes of the podcast. And I have to say, I don't necessarily agree with this, that, the next, the 34th, this. Mind you, if she had listened for 5 more minutes, we would have got around to that point. And all we are saying is, and that's why we created that warning at the beginning, the disclaimer, that open-mindedness is advised. Because Dionne spoke about it, we have always spoken about it, the ego. We all have an ego. But we cannot get wrapped up in our ego when it comes to this man-woman thing, this societal thing. Because when you start to come for the ego, like you feel personally attacked by things we are saying, or you feel like the women you know are being personally attacked, or you feel that women go through so much, who is a man to come and check us? We need to get out of that. Why? Because we can only advance if we hold each other accountable.
Everybody needs a reality check.
Everybody.
Yeah. And when I say things like that, I'm not saying that men get a pass either. We need to hold men accountable too. But that is for us men to do, and we are doing that behind the scenes. And that's the thing. We men don't do things in public like that. We men don't post memes and check men and what about this and what about that. We don't do that.
So stick a pin there, my brother. Stick a pin there, my brother. Because, as you said, it requires men checking men and women checking women. Right? And you would know from our chat, we have privately with the Senate, we check each other in there. If your man feel his X, he tell you straight is X. Yep. If we feel that you're doing A and A is foolishness, he may tell you A is foolishness. Don't do that. If you go on, you do A and you get the results. Well, my boy Mark would say a different way. If you play a certain kind of games, you get praises. If you play country games, you get country praises. Yeah? That's what Mark would do over to you. If you go and do A, they never tell you, we told you not to do A. You went and do A. This is what the results are.
But we don't turn back the man either, because when you come back, you tell us that you went and do it. We don't say, look at you. Yes, we may say, shoot, you shouldn't do that. Look at you. But then we're going to say, but it's all right. It is fine.
We're still here.
Yeah, we still here. It's a learning process. That is what we have in our chat as men.
Women, do women do the same thing? Or is it a case of that we circle the wagons and we get together and we encourage certain things, whether we believe them to be so or not? All right? So, your girlfriend goes and she posts some pictures on IG. Now you say to yourself, she look fairly by, but what you do? Go in the comments, go love, you pump all the flames. Oh, she's a queen. This and the next and the third. When you know within yourself, man, really and truly, she ain't look so good. You don't say that. You don't say that, right? Or maybe take it from that because then one of the boys saying that he fat shaming the body.
No, Derek. No, hold on. You want me to do it? Because watch, right? We have to be understanding of something here. We talk about fat shaming is a thing, and it is horrible. But I do not see anything wrong in empowering someone to be the healthiest version of themselves. I'm not speaking about those people that have medical problems like thyroid or what, I don't know, whatever. I'm speaking about those people that need the push to lose weight. Shoot, I just get pushed to put on weight. I got the other side of the scale. People tell me, look, I literally had my aunts, my grandmother died a few years ago when we were all gathering and stuff. Is like, yeah, boy, you losing a lot of weight, boy. Like a bar, boy, you're falling weight. You need to eat some food, this and that, and the next. And that's another thing. Men get that too. But anyhow, the point is that we need to start normalizing, telling our people, women need to start telling other women, oh, here, tune, right? I think you getting a bit unhealthy in your size and your weight. I literally had a female friend of mine be concerned about a family member who was putting on a lot of weight and they didn't know how to approach that. They didn't know how to say it because we are so in this space of, yeah, go girl, you look good, you're a queen, you know, you wear your size well and stuff like that. But in the end, if you are putting on weight and you're being unhealthy and you're eating practices, you're sleeping practices, you're not exercising at all, when the person kilo about 45, 50, you're gonna say she was a beautiful soul. But you ain't gonna feel incumbent to say I should really encourage this woman to lose some weight, try to get her on certain programs and everything like that. I know weight is a touchy thing for women. I'm not saying not, but we need to stop tiptoeing and being afraid to say, yo, you look good at that size or you're carrying that size, but I think you need to lose some weight. Shoot, you got women putting on weight, the toenails starting to turn black and all sorts of things. They're getting all sorts of hypertension and diabetes and that kind of thing. And we congratulating them. They put up pictures.
What is going on?
Yeah.
What is going on? What is going on? This is escalating quickly. This is escalating quickly. Come back, dude. Come back.
Come back.
But y'all understand what I'm saying, right? I am saying that we women have friends. Some women have friends that put on a lot of weight, and instead of encouraging them to get into a routine, to get healthy or anything like that, they go from, oh, you look good, queen. You should do that, queen. You should do this, queen. So
here's the challenge for you, Neil. You don't know when the person has health challenges or not. So that is why weight will always be a touchy subject. Unless you know this person intimately and they're your friend, where you have inside information as to why the person's weight is doing what it's doing, you can't, it's not an easy topic to have, regardless of whether the person is your friend or not.
Watch it, Dionne. I can give an anecdotal experience as a man, right? Y'all could decide what y'all want from this. I have a very close friend of mine, right? Some of y'all know it. Everybody knows this person, right? This person started to put on a lot of weight to the point where other people were coming to me to say, yo, your boy is putting on a great deal of weight and he's looking unhealthy. You need to talk to him. So I say, yes, I've noticed, I've said something to him, he is aware, etc., etc., etc. So to me, granted, I can see, okay, let's say I see someone that is putting on a lot of weight. Everybody has people on their Instagram that they're not close to or personally, in their whatever, right? And you see this person put up a picture and they're overweight. Barbados is small. You know of people that they know that you can approach and say,
I don't agree with this. I do not agree with this line that you're going down at all. Because it is, to me, it is not your place as a third party friend to be having that conversation.
About what?
Because you don't know. That's the ultimate problem in the scenario.
Which comes back to what we were saying.
If the person is directly your friend,
that's different.
That's different. But you as a third party seeing that photo on social media, to me, you still out of place to go to the person friend and say, Dionne looking real bad, you put on a whole bunch of weight, you better tell you something. Fine. To me, that's not your
agree with that. So
what I'm saying, we have a conversation about healthy living as in general, but I don't think it's your place to tell the person friend to tell them.
I agree. You are right. You are right, because I don't do that. So you are right. However, it still is not my place to go and tell her, you go, girl. You look sexy.
But to me, you don't have to do that. If you don't like it, don't
like what they're saying. People do that. People encourage that. So while you may not,
the thing is, just because you thinking that the person who clicked the like button doing it because that's their friend, the person could like it. Everybody don't like people of a certain size. The person could generally think that girl look good or that man look good. You have no clue what the person who's clicking that like button is thinking. So to me, you are putting your own perception and your own prejudice on how people are viewing that photo, and it's not fair.
Which comes back to my original point.
The first person who has been small and big and small, I will tell you that it's not a fair comparison. It's not a fair statement for you to make. To me, because I gained weight, I wasn't unhealthy, but I gained weight. You don't know why I gained the weight, but I did.
No, okay.
And I had to come to my own realization of how I wanted to look as a person. Even if people around me, even if my mother said, Dionne, you put on a little weight there, so, or I noticed that my clothes size changing and all these different things, I had to come to that myself. No amount of people around me could come and tell me, Dionne, you gaining this weight, you should do something about this day. And I get up and do it. No, it's not a fair statement to make. That's a personal struggle.
So maybe I think what I should have done was to be a bit clear on what I'm saying. I'm not speaking about general weight gain. I'm not speaking about you put on, 10, 15, 20 pounds.
It doesn't matter the number.
It is not on, which is why we're saying it's not on, it's for men to check men, women to check women.
But that's the point.
Right.
I'm not speaking
what I'm saying
as
here,
a man, tell a woman that.
Right. But if a woman's girlfriends should be able to say, Dionne, you can go and do something with this here. So I see this here, you're putting on a little extra pounds or whatever. And shoot,
that's
I am
not
certain.
Either. Dionne, are you okay?
Hold on, Dionne. Right, hold on. Because I don't know how you would deal with it female to female. I can't speak to that. I know because this is how men is deal with it. If I see Neil, my belly look very big, and that is our way to say it as a man. Yeah,
Let me ask you a question.
But that's man to man. That's different.
No. Let me ask you a question about that statement. That is man talk. Suppose the man you say that to, right, is more emotional than you are as an individual. And you say that to them and they take that on. So they may taking it as man talk. They take that on because the reason why they've gained weight is some emotional struggle. No, wait, let me finish. You saying to them, boy, you better get real big, should do something about that, does nothing to drive them to exercise, does nothing to drive them to change their eating habits. It's not fair.
But that's the point.
But the whole Caribbean do it, Beanie Man.
All right, wait, hold on a minute. Wait, Dionne, hold on. We are not saying for women to go to other women and say, well, girl, they look very big or anything like that. No, we are not telling you to do that. We are just, Derek is speaking from a space where he knows of women that likes pictures and encourages women with their size and then talk badly behind their back.
Yeah,
and I'm saying,
I reflect more on the person liking the picture than the person who you perceive to be fat. That is a different.
Right. But the point I was trying to make is the same way you could put that energy in saying, like, for example, as a woman like your picture and say, oh, Dionne, girl, you good, go girl, looking good, fabulous for your age, whatever, and then tell her friends, but Dionne look very saucy and this and that next. I don't know what she put on this or that next. I'm saying she can use
The difference is Dionne ain't hearing that back chat. Dionne out there living her best life because Dionne posts a picture that she's proud of. No, if Dionne posts a picture she's not proud of, that's different. But if Dionne posts a picture that she likes and this person likes it and goes away and talks about Dionne behind Dionne's back for Dionne not to hear, this reflects on the person that's commenting not on Dionne, regardless of Dionne's size.
I agree. I'm just saying that I feel as though, okay, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that people do some things that don't make sense. The same way I could put the energy in saying Dionne has, like, I like your picture, whatever, as a woman. I like your picture, you look good, you go girl, or whatever. And then I behind telling friends, you Dionne looking like she thinks she looking unhealthy, this and that and next. The same way,
if you were a true friend, you would tell Dionne the truth.
That is the point. That is the point I'm trying to say.
Which is a fair statement to make.
That's the point I'm trying to make.
What I'm saying is that just because some person likes a picture of
we're not speaking holistically. We're not speaking holistically. No, we're not
like that photo, huh?
Right. We're not saying I am not saying every woman that likes a picture and comments on a picture think that you are unhealthy. I'm just saying that from certain experiences that we've had and certain things we've heard, I feel as though I understand body weight for women is a very touchy subject. I would not. It's not just for women, but I have had conversations with women asking me, "You think I put on weight? How would you tell me if I put on weight, whatever?" And you've got to kind of make sure you come from a space of love, not disrespect. You come from a space of understanding as best as you can. No, I'm just saying that from certain things we have experienced and certain things we know about, certain things we have heard, where people like pictures and people make comments publicly and then go behind. Shoot, we know of homegirls of this girl that would go in other circles and say bad things about the person that they just encouraged to keep going and be girl rocks or whatever. And I guess the point I was trying to make is that if you could put that energy as a close friend of yours to say, shoot, she ain't looking so good. I like that picture, but she ain't looking so good. The same way you can encourage that person, you can find out if that person is well, and if not, what, like figuring out something.
So
Because
basically, you want the person to actually be their friend and not their pretend friend.
exactly, and that's the point I'm trying to make. Because the same thing with my friend. With my friend, when he started to put on weight, I would never like the pictures and say, yeah, you go boy with this weight or whatever. The man's my good friend. So I told him man straight before anybody told me anything. I say, yo, I got something to tell you. I don't know how to bring it over because we as men don't know how to whatever, but I not liking the weight you put on because I think that I've seen you, I've seen how you move, whatever. I know you, I've known you for most of my life, if not all of my life. And the way you are moving with this weight is not healthy. I can see physically in you that you are not well with this weight. You understand? And I would be like, to me, I would be a horrible person to go to there and say, you man put on a weight, yeah, boy, man, let's stink, yeah. But you know, like that's all I'm trying to say. All I'm trying to say is that I'm not saying everybody that likes a picture and comments thinks that way, but the same way we were talking about earlier about women holding women accountable, I'm speaking from a space of if you have a personal close friend and you see them doing something unhealthy, whether it be in appearance or in mental behavior, emotional behavior, check the person on it. I'm not saying they have, shoot, if they put on weight and they eating whatever they want to eat and whatever, and you see that, look, that person has always been that type of person, that person is not into exercise, that person is whatever, then you can mention something, but that's it. But if you notice a friend 10 years ago, 5 years ago, the person was 120, and today they are nearly 200 pounds. And you can see, you can hear, when you interact with this person, you can hear the heavy breathing, you can see the problem and everything like that. And you know, for all intents and purposes, this person is a healthy person. This person doesn't have a pituitary, doesn't have a medical problem. Say something, don't encourage it, try to find a solution. And that's the point I was trying to make. Maybe I worded it wrong, but the point is that find solutions for your people in your circle. Stop encouraging bad behavior. And this is not only to do with weight. This is to do with social media posts. This is to do with how you speak to people. This is how you, shoot, we know this thing that women have. Shoot, I don't care. I could do as I want. I'm a bad bitch. This, that, the next, the fourth. When you going out to dinner with your girls and they bring the bill, they're treating the way any or how or whatever, like, check your friends, men and women. Is basically the point I was trying to make. We were speaking about weight, but I didn't mean it to say a man off his street or a woman off his street, to see a person on the Facebook and say, yo, no, no, I didn't mean it like that. I meant if you're a close personal friend, don't encourage bad behavior. Don't encourage unhealthy behavior.
I agree with that statement in terms of encouraging your friends to be better. That's the long and short of it. Everybody on a level up process, encourage your friends to be better, plain and simple, in all aspects of life.
All aspects.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to.
Mention something about Lizzo in the chat.
Yeah, but my point, my original point was not specifically about a weight. It was a weight thing. It wasn't a fat shaming thing. That's what I tried to get away from that. I know that could be fairly divisive. I didn't want to get into that at all.
Yes, Karen, I used about it.
It was a case of, as we finally got to the point which we see somebody engaging in the toxic femininity or toxic masculinity, for example, you check that as opposed to circling the wagons, encouraging and enabling that, right? Yeah, that was.
Which goes back to my point about educating people and life and leggings, because there are a lot of things that men would have done that people in your circles would have said and done that women would not have liked, But because you didn't understand how the comments or how the actions affected women or how women felt about them, y'all would have just laughed it off. But if women were able to educate you on how they felt about those actions and those comments, no, you know you are no longer circling the wagon. You are calling him out. You don't have to wait for a woman to call him out on it. No, it's you that says, man, you know that's very junk. Y'all shouldn't be doing that. And that's where
But
the education comes from.
right, so you see, even how you put that over, man, you see that's beer junk or whatever. That's just how men talk,
I
right?
because I think that's how the man would say.
That is how men
Yeah,
relate.
that is how we
With
say.
regard to even the same, not to go back and flog that horse anymore, but even to go back to that, um, that's just how men relate, right? Um, I've had a few good friends. I've said, man, even in terms of G Syndicate, for example, man, so again on here, you're pregnant, man, you know, and that's between us. That's how we relate, right? A fella would come and rub your belly and say, man, where you Jew? That kind of thing. But that's man speak, if you want to call it that, right? To use a toxic masculinity term, you call that man speak. But I don't want for us to get too much into the way thing. It's more the point remains, as you all guys said, do not circle the wagons and encourage and enable the toxic stuff. So when your friends decide to want to go on social media and blast all men, you should be able to say, you know, this ain't really cool, as opposed to joining in and everybody having a good laugh at men's expense.
Good night,
Because guess
Carissa. Thanks for joining
that's
us. You just
yeah,
leave.
man. Good night, TC. Good to see you. Um, yeah, don't just join in and let me all have a laugh and say, ha, done with men and shit, you know, as opposed to saying, man, look, everybody in soul, because you're more likely to see a lot of that as opposed to seeing men coming out and say women ain't shit. You know what I mean? So I think we need to come to that point where it could be a case of let me hear both sides. When you're wrong, tell your friends you're wrong. But we got kind of and ladies, I can speak to you because I saw a comment earlier about a deadbeat dad and deadbeat moms and somebody saying, can't find it now, that men are more likely to kind of again enable a deadbeat dad as their partner while women will call them out. I don't necessarily agree with that because men generally, well, the men I know, will say, hey, you know, you gotta take care of your children. That's a matter of fact, we don't have to. I don't have to say that because the men I know take care of the children. You know what I mean? So and as a man that's teach and work in the ghetto, I see enough deadbeat mothers and deadbeat fathers, right? So let me just hold each other accountable because Karen is saying we strayed from the topic far. Not really, because when you come back and ask how do men level up, how does everybody level up? Because it's a matter of an accountability thing. Men got to hold men accountable. Because damn sure women trying to hold men accountable. And men can't hold women accountable. Women got to be the people to say, you know what? Let me check one another.
Hard or soft.
Let me check one another. Because the reality is, based on some of the stuff I see in the chat, when they try to hear from the men, you know what I
The
mean?
reality is that it's too bad people spoiling it for everybody. So the
Yeah.
reason why y'all will get all men are dogs is because y'all ain't set the dogs. So no, the seed spreading from them to you. And the same thing with women. Last week in the chat, y'all said sex is a gift. And I went away and I told the women that I know because I could not believe that this was happening. And everybody that I asked was shocked. They didn't know that this is what was happening out there, that women weren't giving gifts. The sex is the gift.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
in my head, then it means that those women are making it bad for other women out there who actually put in work. Because the perception is that no women out there putting in work, all men, all women doing this thing where sex is the gift, right? Which is the
Yeah.
same thing that's happening to you. So you got men out there with fleas, and y'all ain't checking them, so the fleas spread into you. So if we don't all check each other, this is what's happening. The good ones can get lumped with the bad ones because that's how it is.
My friend Karen here is saying that she already knows how women are to level up. She see an article or a talk piece on that daily.
But you see, with men, how are
We,
men told to level up?
we,
Men are told to level up in their health. Men are told to level up in their money, in their. As a matter of fact, very rarely I am seeing. It's only starting now to permeate, but you're not seeing things about mental health, and emotional ways to kind of level up. But it is interesting how the level up conversation kind of differs from women to men, because, and it goes back to what we were speaking about earlier about there not being spaces and it not being normalized for certain men to talk about certain things, especially in the mainstream. There are, how many magazines do we know out there for women, and how women should take care of their bodies, take care of their mind, take care of their relationships, take care of their children, take care of them as a person. For men, we have, I know about men's health.
Is that because y'all didn't think you needed to?
Well, no, I think that comes down to two things. One, the taboo with which we talk men, men are not supposed to talk about certain things. And two, we don't, that is not marketable. That is not financially, like if you're a magazine, if you're
I don't know if
no, 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 no. It
historical
is
context
because,
y'all didn't need to fix anything.
pardon me?
Coming from a historical context, y'all didn't need to fix anything. It was y'all world though. So
It's not, but
you
no,
had Playboy magazine. Y'all didn't need to fix anything. That's all you needed.
but that's the point. That's the first point. The first point is society has shown us that we talk about them things. We good. We perfect. We, men doing men things. Whether we drink, smoke, be promiscuous, whatever, men doing men things, and that has been normalized. But along with that is that it is not, men ain't going out there and buying magazines on how to improve themselves mentally. Men ain't doing that. Men are not watching programs on how to get better mentally. Men ain't looking, like, if you package content for men saying we are talking about men's mental health, or we are talking about men's emotional
you won't make
vulnerability,
any money. It's
and the
still
money is that,
consumer driven, and women buy more
money
than
is
men.
that. When you look at all of the things that are out there for women,
The reason why it makes money for women too is because women believe that there are things they need to learn. So yes, the packaging is important, but my mind has to be willing to think that this is a product I need to buy. If you don't think that this is a product you need to buy, no matter how we package it and wrap it up in a blue bowl, you're not going to buy it. So you still have
what,
to be aware that this is content you need to consume.
and where it comes back to, emotional maturity.
Correct. Which is what I'm saying that for a long time, I don't think that men, not necessarily your generation, but men are, as a whole, thought they needed to consume any of this content. So it didn't make any sense. The reason why Playboy is as rich as it is because that's the content y'all were fed and y'all thought you needed to consume. The reason why
Sure.
good housekeeping, the reason why good housekeeping made that money is because back in the day women were domesticated and they needed to consume that content to keep their man happy. It's the same. That's exactly why there's so many shows geared towards women because that is the content we've been told that we need to consume to be a good wife.
Mm-hmm.
But you weren't told you need to consume any of that stuff to be a good husband. You just needed to provide to be a good husband. It's only now that you're realizing that, bringing home money is not all that there needs to be. So it's only now that the content is being made available because there's now a market for it. That's what it is.
So, uh, so some of this stuff. I see a comment here. I think is Cross made a comment. Yeah, everybody get a therapist. We big on that here. Everybody get a
Yep.
therapist. Don't talk this stuff out, because I'm still seeing the dismissal of some points. I don't get it, but we coming up to 10 o'clock, guys. I think we had a riveting conversation.
Dionne, I ain't gonna lie to you, we gotta bring you back. And not for your looks, because I find, and the thing is, I know going into this, I think they knew this, that everybody expected you to bring, your Thor armor and men ain't shit, men this, men that, men that, but your 2 points
that was not.
that's not you. Yeah, we know that was not you, but it is interesting how succinct you were in your 2 points. You literally brought two problems men have. And those two problems, well, one problem is inherent to men and what society has ingrained in us, and the other one is what everybody should do. So it is very interesting that, last week we saw people saying, gee, I got to bring my books, I got to take my notes, you want a pamphlet or a book, and you came with 2 points. And you are completely right, because every problem that we can attribute to men and women will come back to emotional maturity. And people need to hold themselves accountable. If they can't hold themselves accountable, find people that they trust that can hold themselves accountable. So I think this was a very interesting discussion. I know we got into it a bit with the weight, and that is on me because the analogy I used or the situation I used was poor. But in the end, we came to it, and that's what this is about. This is about us, disagreeing, but coming to being open-mindedness to see each other's perspective and understanding where we would have messed up in saying certain things or doing certain things or thinking certain things and coming around to the other person's way of thinking. It's not always going to happen, but at least we had that discussion, and I feel as though we have made some progress. So Derek, we do a good job, man. Granted, we could have bring somebody to come and burn some men, but I guess I feel comfortable because if you'd bring somebody that was gonna say, man, ain't shit, this is like next, this probably would have got 100 views.
I don't think the conversation would have been as. Huh?
Say again?
I would actually want some person like that on the live to understand where it's coming from, what's driving that perspective.
It's not for lack of trying. Let's just leave it there. We try to get
say this, right?
people that.
I'll say this. Dionne, can we do part 2 on Thursday? You available for part 2?
Dionne, lucky to give you a regular spot here for the show, man.
Dionne got like tomorrow. Dionne and this will pressure at work, so we'll see how that goes.
We can see how it goes, but I wonder if we flipped it and we talked about what's wrong with women, if we get the same engagement on Thursday. We'll see.
I'm not gonna lie, right? I literally, let's put it like this. So Derek and I knew that we were. Good night, Carrie. Thanks for joining us. I knew we were gonna do men, what's wrong with men, and then we were gonna do what's wrong with women, and we kind of were not taking notes, but we were kind of gearing up for it. And it's so interesting how Dionne came from a perspective where I feel as though when we talk about women, it can kind of come back to the same points. You know what I mean? I think that we can talk from an anecdotal perspective and how men see it and everything like that. But generally, I feel as though Dionne come and throw a monkey wrench with her logic. I don't know. You don't know logic. Logic don't make for good TV, Dionne.
I don't know Kevin Seeley, but I see a lot of his comments in the chat. I'm curious if he will come on the live on Thursday.
I'll ask him. Matter of fact, I didn't speak for himself.
Yeah, Katin, what you feeling?
But why would we be at QEH? Are you willing to listen to you? If I could really chat fast enough and talk at the same time, I would have responded to some of your comments because I don't think that they were fair in the context of how you spoke about women. So if you're willing to come in, put your points so that I could either agree or refute them, I don't mind.
And as you can see, Dionne is not that type of woman to get bombastic. She's very level-headed and even keeled. She has been like this for the last 30 years.
My guy Philip telling me don't do the topic that we can get raw so I can break through.
If we there's no way that you want fixed men and you don't want fixed women. So you can get people. So then we fix men, but then we still got broken women for the perfect men or the fixed men to go to date. That doesn't make sense. The women that can be best about the topic are the women probably who need fixing. Let me be real.
Don't
be misled, you know. I don't mind Philip, I do the topic.
We try to fix society, not one gender, because it don't take one. Society don't work off for one gender. It don't make no sense.
Bad man not afraid, so we can talk the things.
Tell you, anytime you see me in a show,
and I invite my friend here, my friend Karen, to come back in because I realize she got a lot of stick for the men. So I invite you, Karen, to come back on Thursday. I will be happy to engage you thoroughly come Thursday. Yeah. So man, come Thursday, bring your friends.
Bring your friends. As you can see, people, we are trying to build a community where we're trying to get somewhere, and not just, as my mother there says, circle the wagon, circle the fire, and burn the other gender. At the end of the day, we need each other. That's the only way we can procreate as a species. That's how we are conditioned. That's how we are made to be. We are made to be with people, right? So we need to fix this disconnect. Maybe it's something that was never broken. It's probably just initiated poorly to start. Whatever it was, the point is we can do our due diligence and try to do what we can to fix it. We obviously can't fix everything with this one show, but we damn sure can try our best to get people to see a different side of everything. So Dionne should show you that this is the type of engagement we want. We want to be challenged. We want to look at things from a different perspective. We don't want people or we don't want to get in shouting matches or anything like that. We want a space where we can get a better understanding of each other and we can mend the divide or create a bridge across the divide to come to some general consensus. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. Definitely want to thank Dionne for letting me use her picture. And
I accept my royalty check.
Put in that she got my problems.
I brought so many 96, 98, and 99 to see people to the chat. I expect my royalty check.
Yeah, Dionne brought up some people tonight, so we truly appreciative.
So we would
encouraging everybody, like the page, follow everything, and come again on Thursday. We can do the part 2. We can have a discussion. We can talk about what's wrong with modern women, and do they need to level up?
So bring your friends, especially women. Bring your friends, because there are a lot of women walking around here thinking that they're perfect. A lot of women thinking that they're queens. And really and truly, there is nothing that makes them a queen other than, I guess, their thoughts, attitude.
What? All right, that's another topic.
Don't preempt.
I ain't want to get into that now. So
let's not get it.
Yeah. So, Derek, as my man Derek would say, this is usually Derek's job, but I can say, like the page, follow, subscribe. We on YouTube. What's the YouTube? I made the channels, I can't remember. The Senate Podcast on YouTube, on Facebook, the Senate Podcast, Instagram at the Senate Podcast 246. You can always email us, senateinsession@gmail.com. Let's keep the conversation going. As you can see, we are not as close-minded as people may think. We want to have the discussion. Hard or soft, we may agree, we may disagree, but at the end of the day, we want to walk away with something to think about and then come back with fresh perspectives. So again, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Dionne, so much for being the face of women and represented by women all over the world.
Other places.
Yeah, and other places. I have been your host, Neil Hoyt, and Derek has been your other host. So Derek,
guys, be the best version of you for you. We'll see you guys on Thursday.
Peace and love, everyone. So don't worry about me. I wanna see if we got good chemistry.